Title: We found a village deep in the forest where no one blinked. Help this channel grow. Like the video, leave a comment, and subscribe for more stories. This helps us a lot. Thank you. The story begins. Some forests swallow people. This one swallowed time. What they found beyond the tree line was not abandoned, not ruined, and not dead. It was waiting. They thought they had discovered a forgotten village. They were wrong. If you're new here, subscribe now, because some stories don't end when the video does. This is what happened deep in the forest where no one blinked. The path that wasn't there. The forest was not marked on most maps. It existed in the vague green smudge between two rural counties in northern Montana, a region where cell service failed before the tree line even began. Locals referred to it simply as Black Hollow. No signage, no hiking trails, no cabins listed in rental databases. Hunters skirted around it. Even the logging companies avoided it, which made it perfect for Daniel Mercer. Daniel was not reckless. He was meticulous. A wildlife documentary editor by trade and an amateur explorer by obsession, he specialized in forgotten spaces, abandoned mining towns, collapsed rail tunnels, condemned hospitals. He did not chase ghosts. He chased stories. The deeper and more isolated, the better. When satellite imagery showed what looked like unnatural geometry inside Black Hollow, faint straight lines beneath canopy shadow, he became convinced there was something there. Not ruins, structures. 3 months later, he returned with a small team: Eric Halstead, an outdoor survivalist with thousands of followers; Lena Kovacs, a historian fascinated by unregistered settlements; and a quiet cinematographer named Miles who rarely spoke but never missed a detail. The hike-in was wrong from the beginning. The forest floor was too soft, almost sponge-like, as if the ground had been disturbed recently. No animal tracks marked the mud. No birds sang overhead. The silence felt layered, not natural, as though something was absorbing sound. Daniel noticed it first, a narrow clearing cutting through dense pines. It did not appear on GPS. It was not worn by animals. It looked carved. The path curved gently inward, disappearing into shadow so complete it seemed artificial. The team paused. Even Eric hesitated. But they continued. The further they walked, the more the forest changed. The trees grew taller but thinner, their trunks unusually straight. No underbrush cluttered the sides. No fallen branches obstructed the way. It felt maintained. After nearly an hour, the path widened. And then they saw it. A clearing. A village. Not ruins. Not decayed foundations. Actual wooden houses, modest but intact, arranged in an oval pattern around a central well. Smoke did not rise from chimneys. No livestock roamed. No tools were left scattered. It was orderly. Too still. Daniel felt excitement before unease. An undocumented settlement in the middle of a restricted forest would be historic. Lena began recording notes immediately, analyzing architectural style. The buildings resembled late 1800s frontier structures but lacked signs of aging. The wood was pale, unweathered, as if it had been built recently to look old. Then they saw the people, standing between the houses, watching them. There were perhaps 20 villagers in sight at first glance. Men, women, children, all standing upright, all facing the newcomers. None moving. Their clothing matched the architecture, simple cotton garments in muted tones, no visible modern accessories. No shoes with logos. No phones. No tools in hand. And none of them blinked. At first, Daniel assumed distance made it hard to see eye movement. But as they approached, the stillness deepened. Their eyes were open, unnaturally wide. Not strained, not dry, just open. The villagers' chests rose with breath, slow and synchronized, but their faces held no expression. No confusion. No curiosity. No hostility. Just observation. Lena whispered that perhaps this was a reclusive community, an off-grid sect. But even sects react to strangers. Eric raised a hand in greeting. No response. Miles continued filming. Daniel stepped forward, heart hammering in slow, deliberate beats. He introduced himself calmly, explaining they were documenting rural settlements. His voice felt intrusive in the silence. Not a single villager blinked. One child stood closest, a boy perhaps 8 years old. His pupils were dilated far beyond normal, swallowing nearly the entire iris. Yet he did not squint in daylight. Daniel felt something cold shift beneath his ribs. There was no visible moisture in their eyes. No tear buildup. No redness. It was biologically wrong. Minutes passed. No one moved. Then, as if triggered by an unseen signal, every villager turned their heads in the exact same direction. Not toward the team. Toward the well at the center. The movement was synchronized, mechanical. Not human. Daniel felt the first real pulse of fear. He followed their gaze. The well was deep, stone-lined, covered partially by a wooden beam. No rope hung from it. No bucket. Just darkness inside. And something in that darkness moved. It was subtle. A shift in shadow. A distortion like heat over asphalt. The villagers did not blink. They did not speak. They simply stared into the well. The air temperature dropped. Daniel noticed his breath fog faintly, though it had been mild earlier. Eric muttered that they should leave. But Daniel's obsession overpowered caution. The footage alone would be career-defining. A silent village, synchronized behavior, it would ignite theories across the internet. He took one step toward the well. The villagers' eyes shifted to him. Instantly. In unison. Every pupil locking onto him with predatory precision. And for the first time, Daniel realized something else. Their eyes were not focusing normally. They were too still. Too fixed. Like mannequins fitted with glass. The child nearest him tilted his head slightly, not curiously but adjusting alignment as if recalibrating. Daniel stopped moving. The villagers resumed staring at the well. Minutes stretched unbearably. No wind disturbed the trees. No insects buzzed. Miles lowered the camera slowly. The silence pressed against their ears until it almost hurt. Then one villager, a woman near the far house, took a single step forward. Her movement was fluid but delayed, like a marionette catching up to its strings. She did not blink. Her eyes remained open. She walked to the well and leaned over it. The rest followed, one by one, in silence. Each villager stepping forward and peering into the darkness. Daniel's instinct screamed to run, but curiosity rooted him in place. When the last villager reached the well, they formed a perfect ring around it. All staring down, all unblinking. The temperature dropped further. And then from within the well came something worse than a sound. A pressure, like a low vibration felt in teeth. The villagers' breathing synchronized faster. Inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale. Daniel felt his own breathing trying to match theirs. His eyes stung, dryness spreading across his corneas. He blinked rapidly, and in that split second when his eyelids closed, he felt something shift in the air around him. When he opened them, the villagers were no longer at the well. They were closer, much closer, standing only a few feet away, all facing him. No footsteps heard, no transition seen, just there. The child stood directly in front of him now, eyes open, too open. And for the first time, Daniel noticed something even more horrifying. The villagers were not blinking, because they did not need to. There were no eyelids. Where lids should have folded, smooth skin stretched seamlessly over the brow. Their eyes were permanently exposed. Permanent, unprotected. Watching. Daniel's throat tightened. The woman nearest him leaned forward slightly. Her eyes were not reflecting light correctly. They absorbed it, and within the pupils, movement, like something writhing behind the glass. The villagers were not staring at them. They were looking through them, towards something behind. Daniel felt a presence at his back, cold breath against his neck. But he did not turn. He was afraid that if he blinked again, he would not see the same world when his eyes reopened. Behind the villagers, the well began to echo with a hollow, scraping rhythm. Slow, deliberate, climbing. And every villager's head tilted upward in unison, as if something inside the well had finally finished rising. No one moved first. The presence behind Daniel did not breathe again, yet the cold remained pressed against his spine like a hand that had decided not to leave. The villagers stood impossibly close now. Their skin was pale but not bloodless, their veins faintly visible beneath the surface. Their eyes, lidless, unblinking, fixed in silent concentration. The scraping from inside the well continued. Slow, measured, ascending. Daniel's rational mind attempted to construct explanations. Hidden mechanisms. Underground chambers. A staged performance meant to intimidate outsiders. But there were too many variables that logic could not stabilize. No footprints marked the ground around the well. No ropes, no ladders, no equipment. Just darkness. And something climbing upward through it. The villagers stepped back simultaneously, forming a wider circle. Not retreating in fear. Creating space. For Daniel felt the air pressure shift again, subtle but heavy, as though the atmosphere had thickened around the well's mouth. The sunlight above dimmed slightly, filtered through canopy, yet not enough to justify the shadow now pooling outward from the well like liquid ink. Lena's breathing became shallow. Eric's shoulders tightened. Miles kept filming. And then it appeared. Not fully. Not immediately. First came two shapes rising from within the darkness. Not hands, not arms, but extensions. Long and narrow, bone-thin and segmented like jointed branches. They gripped the stone edge of the well without making a sound. The skin on those appendages was not skin at all. It resembled the inner membrane of an eye, pale, veined, glistening faintly. The villagers did not flinch. Daniel felt his vision sharpen painfully, as if his eyes were being forced open wider than they naturally allowed. His own blinking felt intrusive, wrong, disruptive to something larger than himself. More of it rose. A head, if it could be called that. Round but elongated, like a skull stretched vertically. The surface smooth and translucent, faint shapes shifting beneath it as though something inside was constantly rearranging itself. Where a face should have been, there was only a single massive eye. Not symmetrical. Not centered properly. Just embedded slightly off balance, rolling slowly in its socketless cavity. It did not blink. It could not blink. Its pupil dilated as it emerged into daylight, expanding unnaturally until the iris nearly vanished. The villagers inhaled together. Daniel felt his heartbeat skip violently. The creature lifted itself higher, revealing a torso too narrow to support the eye above it. Ribs pressed outward against thin membrane. No visible mouth. No nose. Only that eye, enormous and searching. The presence behind Daniel tightened. He understood then. The villagers were not guardians. They were hosts. Their bodies were intact, but their attention was not their own. Each of their eyes, lidless and fixed, contained movement behind the pupil. The same movement now rising from the well. The creature's single eye rotated slowly, examining the clearing. It passed over Lena, over Eric, over Miles. When it settled on Daniel, his knees weakened. He did not collapse. He could not. His body felt partially locked, as if invisible threads had attached to his muscles. The creature did not advance fully out of the well. It hovered, half emerged, its elongated limbs anchoring it to the stone. And then something happened to the villagers. Their pupils widened further. Too far. Black consuming color. Within each eye, a faint reflection appeared. The well. But not as it was. As it had been. Daniel saw it in their gaze, distorted yet unmistakable, rows of figures standing around the well. Different clothing. Different faces. Dozens of people. Watching something climb. The villagers were replaying something. Or remembering. Or transmitting. Daniel realized that whatever this entity was, it did not simply emerge. It replaced. The hosts had not always looked like this. The lidless eyes were not birth defects. They were alterations. He felt moisture evaporating from his own eyes. Dryness clawing at his vision. The urge to blink intensified into panic. He blinked once. The world shifted. Not dramatically. Just slightly. The sky seemed lower. The trees leaned inward. The villagers were closer again. Too close. The creature's eye was now fully above the well. It was larger than before. Or closer. It rotated until its pupil aligned directly with Daniel's. And in that moment, he saw beneath its surface. Images. Rapid. Fragmented. People entering the forest over decades. Hunters. Hikers. Surveyors. All walking the carved path. All arriving in the clearing. All staring into the well. And then, becoming still. Becoming unblinking. Their eyelids dissolving seamlessly into smooth skin. Their expressions fading into blank attentiveness. Daniel felt something probing at his consciousness, not invasive in the way of force but persuasive. A pull toward surrender, toward stillness, toward eternal watching. Eric staggered slightly beside him. Lena's hand trembled. Miles lowered the camera. The creature's eye contracted sharply, and the villagers reacted instantly. They moved, not chaotically, not attacking. They began to walk in slow circles around the team. Perfect formation. Perfect distance. Their eyes never leaving them. The pattern tightened gradually. A ritual. A containment. Daniel tried to step backward. His foot resisted. The ground felt soft again, spongy beneath his boots. He looked down. The forest floor was not soil. It was layered with something fibrous. Compressed. Pale strands woven together. Bone fragments embedded within. The clearing was not natural. It was built on accumulation. Years. Decades. Maybe more. The villagers completed their circle. The creature's eye rotated once more, focusing on Lena. Her breathing faltered. Daniel saw it begin, the subtle change. Her blinking slowed. Each blink slightly delayed, as though her eyelids were resisting closure. Her pupils widened unnaturally. The villagers nearest her shifted their gaze subtly, aligning with the creature's focus. Daniel forced himself to look away from the well. That seemed to weaken the pressure slightly. The entity thrived on attention, on direct observation. The unblinking state was not passive. It was participation. Miles suddenly dropped to one knee, not in collapse, in stillness. His eyes locked forward, unblinking, too wide. Daniel's stomach dropped. Miles' eyelids twitched once, then smoothed. The skin above his eyes tightened, flattened, sealed, as if erased. There was no blood, no tearing, just transformation. Eric grabbed his arm, a rare moment of physical grounding. Daniel realized something critical. Blinking disrupted the synchronization. It created resistance. The villagers did not blink because they were fully synchronized, fully connected, fully surrendered. The creature began to rise higher, more limbs unfurling from its narrow torso. Each limb tipped with small circular structures, miniature eyes, closed at first. They began to open, one by one, dozens, each focusing on a different direction, watching every angle of the clearing, watching escape routes, watching thoughts. Daniel blinked repeatedly now, forcing his vision to blur. The creature recoiled slightly, its large central eye contracting. The villagers faltered in their circular pacing. A weakness, brief but real. Eric seemed to notice too. He squeezed his eyes shut tightly. The villagers nearest him hesitated. The creature's eye flicked between them. It required visual engagement, continuous exposure. The ritual was not physical. It was ocular. Daniel understood then why the forest was silent. Animals blink. They avert their gaze. They do not sustain eye contact with something that stares back endlessly. Humans, however, could be compelled. Compelled to watch. Compelled to remain open. Lena staggered backward. Her eyelids were thinning, translucent. She tried to blink again. They did not fully close. The creature extended one elongated limb toward her. It did not touch her. It hovered inches away. Her pupils expanded to match its own. Daniel acted without thinking. He stepped forward and deliberately looked away from the well, fixing his gaze on the ground while blinking as rapidly as he could manage. The pressure surged violently. The creature reacted. The villagers' movements destabilized. Some swayed. A few jerked unnaturally as if buffering. The creature emitted no sound, but the scraping vibration intensified. Daniel grabbed Eric and forced him to move backward toward the tree line. The villagers adjusted instantly, intercepting their path, unblinking, their eyes reflecting the well's interior again. But this time Daniel saw something new in the reflection. The well was not the source. It was a doorway. Beneath it stretched a vertical tunnel lined with eyes embedded in stone. Hundreds, watching upward. The creature was only the uppermost extension, a fragment. The village was built above a vertical ecosystem of watchers, an ancient organism sustained by observation. The realization nearly paralyzed him. Miles stood fully upright now, unblinking, perfectly still. He turned slowly toward Daniel. His eyes were no longer human. They were reflective, like polished glass, and within them, movement. The creature's miniature eyes began opening faster, all locking onto Daniel simultaneously. He felt the pressure spike, a command, a demand. Remain open, join. His own eyelids trembled, muscles resisting. He forced them shut again. Darkness swallowed the clearing, but even in darkness, he felt watched. The villagers surged forward, hands extending, not grabbing, aligning. Their goal was not violence. It was stillness, total, synchronized stillness. And Daniel realized with rising horror, the only way to resist was to stop looking. Completely. Darkness did not bring relief. When Daniel forced his eyes shut, the pressure did not disappear. It intensified. The absence of sight did not protect him from the presence below the well. It only removed the illusion of distance. The watching did not require vision. It required awareness. The villagers' footsteps circled closer. Not hurried, not chaotic. Their movements were methodical, measured in perfect synchronization. The ground beneath Daniel's boots shifted again, compressing with a faint organic give. The clearing felt less like land and more like layered remains. Eric stumbled beside him, eyes squeezed shut, breathing unsteady. The air felt thinner now, harder to draw into lungs. The temperature continued dropping, though no wind moved through the trees. Daniel understood something then that terrified him more than the creature itself. The forest was not silent because of fear. It was silent because nothing remained that could resist. He opened his eyes for a fraction of a second. The village had changed. The houses leaned slightly inward now, angled toward the well. Their windows were dark hollows. The wood no longer looked newly constructed. It appeared aged in sudden increments, cracked and splitting as though time was accelerating. The villagers stood closer than before. Miles was among them fully now, unblinking, perfectly aligned. His posture matched theirs exactly, shoulders square, chin slightly lifted, gaze fixed not at Daniel but through him. Their skin looked tighter, thinner, as if something beneath it pressed outward against containment. The creature had risen further from the well. Its elongated torso extended nearly 6 feet above the stone rim. The single massive eye dominated its form, but the smaller eyes along its limbs were now fully open. Each one rotated independently, scanning every direction at once, watching everything, watching the forest, watching the sky, watching him. Daniel's blink reflex triggered again involuntarily. When his eyes reopened, the creature was closer, not by walking, by absence of transition. It occupied more space without crossing it. Reality did not bend around it. Reality deferred. Lena collapsed to her knees. Her eyelids had nearly smoothed over completely, only faint creases remaining where they once folded. Her blinking had slowed to almost nothing. The villagers closest to her tilted their heads in identical angles, adjusting alignment. Daniel realized the process was gradual but inevitable once synchronization began. The entity did not force transformation. It induced participation. Lena's eyes were still human for a moment longer. Then they widened beyond natural limit. The thin skin above them tightened, flattened, erased. Her expression emptied. She rose slowly, joining the circle without hesitation. Eric made a desperate movement toward the tree line. 3 villagers intercepted him instantly, stepping into his path with impossible precision. Their bodies moved fluidly but lacked independent variation. They were extensions of a single awareness. Eric opened his eyes in panic. That was enough. The creature's primary eye snapped toward him. The pupil dilated violently, swallowing the remaining color. Eric's blinking faltered. Daniel saw the exact moment resistance weakened. It was subtle. A delay. A hesitation. The eyelids no longer fully sealing. Within seconds, the smoothing began. Eric's face lost its tension. His breathing synchronized with the others. And then he was still. The circle tightened further. Daniel was alone in motion now. The creature extended one elongated limb outward. The smaller eyes along it focused directly on him. They were not hostile. Not predatory in the traditional sense. They were curious. He felt something entering his perception. Not a thought placed into his mind, but a perspective widening inside it. He saw the well from below. Saw the vertical shaft descending far deeper than possible. Stone walls lined with organic growths, each growth containing an eye embedded within translucent tissue. Hundreds of them. Thousands. All open. All directed upward toward the village. The entity in the well was not singular. It was a convergence point. A collector. It fed on sustained attention. On the human capacity to fixate. To stare. To witness. The villagers had once been individuals. Now they were lenses. Daniel staggered backward. He forced himself to look at the trees instead of the creature. The bark seemed distorted. Knotted patterns resembling closed eyelids carved naturally into the trunks. Closed. Not open. The trees had survived by not looking. He squeezed his eyes shut again and began moving blindly toward where he believed the forest edge stood. The villagers did not chase. They did not need to. The creature's pressure followed him. The awareness stretched. He stumbled over uneven ground, falling hard against the fibrous surface. His palms pressed into the pale strands embedded in the clearing. They were not roots. They were optic nerves. Dried, layered, compressed over time. He scrambled upright and ran. Eyes closed. Branches struck his face. Thorns tore at his clothing. The silence remained absolute. Behind him, the scraping vibration intensified again, not climbing now but resonating outward like a pulse. He felt it inside his skull. His eyelids trembled uncontrollably. The urge to open them became overwhelming. Not fear-driven. Compulsion-driven. The need to see. To confirm. To understand. He resisted. He ran further. The ground hardened beneath his boots. The spongy give vanished. Forest floor replaced the clearing. He opened his eyes. The path behind him was gone. No visible entrance to a village. No carved trail. Only dense trees and shadow. His chest heaved violently. His vision blurred from dryness and strain. He turned slowly, scanning the forest edge. No houses. No well. No villagers. Only trees. But something was wrong. The forest remained silent. Completely. And he could still feel it. The watching had not stopped. It had expanded. The creature had not needed to pursue him physically. He had looked for too long. Daniel staggered deeper into the forest, putting distance between himself and where the clearing had been. Minutes stretched into hours. Eventually he reached the highway, collapsing near the roadside. A passing driver found him near dusk, disoriented and dehydrated. Authorities searched the coordinates he provided. They found nothing. No clearing. No structures. No path. Satellite imagery revealed only uninterrupted forest canopy. Miles, Lena, and Eric were listed as missing. Daniel was hospitalized for severe corneal damage. His eyes had dried to the point of microscopic tearing. Doctors attributed his symptoms to stress and exposure. He tried to explain. He described the well, the creature, the unblinking villagers. No one believed him. Weeks passed, then months. He avoided mirrors, avoided eye contact, avoided screens, but the feeling persisted. At night, he would wake with his eyes open, unable to remember opening them. He would find himself staring at the ceiling, unmoving, minutes at a time. One evening, while washing his face, he noticed something in his reflection. A faint thinning along his upper eyelid, barely visible, a subtle smoothing. He blinked rapidly. The crease returned, but it felt weaker. Over the next few days, he caught himself staring at nothing more frequently. Longer intervals between blinks. His vision sharpened in unnatural ways. Colors appeared more saturated, shadows more defined. He began seeing movement in peripheral darkness, not approaching, watching. One night, while standing in his bedroom, he felt the familiar pressure build behind his eyes. He resisted the urge to open them wider, but his eyelids felt heavy, unnecessary. He walked to the bathroom mirror slowly, deliberately. He opened his eyes fully, and held them open. In the reflection, his pupils expanded slowly, beyond normal limits. Behind them, faint movement, writhing, adjusting, aligning. His eyelids trembled. He tried to blink. They hesitated, for just a fraction too long. The forest had not been a place. It had been a gateway, and he had not escaped. He had carried the gaze with him. Far beneath Black Hollow, the well remained open. The village stood silent above it. The villagers unblinking, waiting for others to walk the path that was not there. And now, somewhere far from that forest, Daniel stood in his apartment, staring into his reflection, learning how not to blink. Some places don't trap your body. They trap your sight. If you made it this far, look away for a second. Blink. Make sure you still can. Because not every story ends in the forest. If you want more dark horror like this, subscribe now. And remember, if you ever find a village where no one blinks, don't look down the well.